Dynamic psychology directs the attention to the whole individual in interacting with a world of other individuals. This article addresses the relationship among people in work situations. In the following critique, Team Omega Mobile, consisting of Erica Warren, Jamelia Burney, and Chelsea Tyler, will analyze and evaluate our thoughts concerning the article entitled Conditions for Effective Leadership. The author of our text is Douglas McGregor. McGregor was born in Detroit, Michigan. He earned his BE from Rangoon Institute of Technology, his bachelor's in psychology from Wayne State University, and his master's and PhD in psychology from Harvard University. He is most famous for his book, The Human Side of Enterprise, in which he identified an approach of creating an environment in which employees are motivated. We will begin with a brief analysis of the text. The main point of the article is to discuss relationships among people at work. We believe the purpose of the article is to give the reader a better understanding of the psychological roles of superiors and their subordinates. In our opinion, the intended audience is geared towards those in professional fields hoping to advance their positions. The article included a lot of evidence to support his arguments. For example, McGregor compared the dependence a subordinate has upon superiors to the dependence a child has upon adults, which in turn gave the reader a better understanding of the psychological significance. In the article, it states that the direct impact of forces which aid or hinder an individual is through the actions of others, which means the actions of other people influence the individual in the workplace. In this section, the author divides the actions into three classes: actions of superiors, actions of subordinates, and actions of associates. Actions of superiors affect the subordinate in their quest to satisfy their needs. One might ask, why is actions of superior much larger than the other two classes? Well, this is a representation of the importance based on the author's opinion. According to McGregor, actions of superior is prior to the other two actions, and in many ways it is the most important. Therefore, he limits the attention only to the actions of superiors. We feel that the author should have included a brief explanation of each action so that the reader could make the assumption of which is most important. Or, he shouldn't have mentioned the other two actions since he will not be discussing it throughout the article. The dependence of the subordinate. We feel that success of both parties, as well as the success of the organization, is dependent on an effective and efficient relationship between these two people. In our society, it is true that subordinates depend on their superiors for satisfaction of their needs. As a group, we agreed that most jobs require a superior in order to maintain order in a facility. We feel that this is a natural dependence that our civilization and even early relationships experience. For example, the relationship between a child and their parent. We also agree that there are certain consequences subordinates may experience for having such dependencies, such as the necessity for security and the necessity for independence, which we will go into greater detail. The necessity for security. Before a subordinate can believe that it is possible to satisfy their wants in a workplace, they must acquire a sense of security. Security is a condition of leadership where constituents will fight to protect themselves against real or imagined threats. In the article, it is discussed that management recognized financial aspects of needs for security, but we feel employees were more so referring to job security than financial security. We know labor unions and certain benefits are intact for financial aspect of job security, but we feel the article didn't touch on the real problem, which is the personal dependence of the subordinate upon the judgments and decisions of his superior. The conditions of security. There are three aspects of the subordinate and superior relationship that affect the security of the subordinate. The atmosphere of approval is revealed not by what the superior does, but by the manner in which they do it, and by their underlying attitude towards their subordinates. Knowledge is knowing what is expected of him or her. And lastly, consistent discipline. It requires the definite assurance that they will have the support of their superiors so long as their actions remain consistent with the organization's policies. As a team, we feel that effective leaders that embody this type of relationship wind up successful and promoted. We also feel that acknowledgement should be one of the conditions. In our work experience, we get a sense of security when a superior acknowledges excelled or poor job performance. This will allow the subordinate and the superior to maintain the standards within a company. A subordinate actively searching for independence is both constructive and healthy. The necessity for independence is sought out in two fundamental ways. The first is active search, and it is the result of a subordinate seeking ways to utilize his capabilities and skills fully. The second is reactive search. It is the result of a subordinate feeling that his dependence on his superiors lacks security. Team Omega Mobile feels that every subordinate should find a way to actively search for independence. Active searches show that you are no longer dependent on your superior, which may lead to a promotion. We feel that companies want employees to follow their rules, but they also want people to develop, change, and seek out ways to better the company. There are three known conditions of active independence. The first is participation, and it is more common in upper level positions, as it is the subordinates' opportunities to express ideas that lead to their growth and development. The second is responsibility. It is the willingness to accept responsibility for one's actions, and it is a sign of respect and intellectual development. The third is the right of appeal. The right of appeal dictates that if a subordinate feels as though the superior's decision is incorrect or immoral, they can appeal it. This usually results in a loss of trust in the superior to the subordinate. If this occurs too often, the subordinate can be blocked in their search for independence. We believe the article was logical and well organized. The terms were clearly defined, and it was fairly easy to find them because they were all italicized. We felt that the article was redundant and the information given was not a revolutionary discovery, but we do feel that the organization and flow of the article was close to perfection. In our opinion, the content was informative and accurate. We had a great understanding of the content by the end of the article. The conclusion of the article was well written. It effectively summarized everything that was mentioned throughout the text without using an excessive amount of words, which is something we have rarely seen throughout this book. In conclusion, the subordinate is dependent for the satisfaction of his needs upon the attitudes and behaviors of his superiors. He requires a feeling of confidence that he can satisfy his needs, which in turn gives him security. Upon their fulfillment rests the success or failure of the subordinate-superior relationship. We thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed our critique of the conditions for effective leadership.